My name is Moon Petrie and this is a revision update. I meant to be vlogging this all along. I'm sorry. I thought so hard about filming a clip that I was convinced that I had, but upon checking, I just thought it out really thoroughly. I didn't actually ever film anything. So here we are. It is Tuesday, the 24th of August. And I have just finished the revision pass that I started at the beginning of July. This was the big developmental edit based on feedback from beta readers, and it had some big changes toward the end. So during August, there were times when I totally should have done it, but was watching that Netflix show Zoo. There were times when I could totally have handled something, but was not really having the time or clarity, personal space, and baby right here, to do the kind of major overhaul of the ending that I was getting to. So I spent some time putting it off, and I spent some time doing some brainstorming, thinking it through, and I did at times come up with things that I needed to go back and add. So there were a couple of points when I stopped my linear revision in order to go fit something in before tying it all together at the end. But I did it. I got through it, and I added overall almost exactly the amount of words that I was looking to add. So I started off at just over 65K at the beginning of July, and now it is 73,982 or something like that. So very close to 74,000. I added nearly 9,000 words, and I'm happy with that. I added a big scene at the end, and I added a lot throughout, and I think it has a more grounded sense of setting and more emotional depth of characters and better building of the romantic relationship so that it makes sense that they would be interested in each other. There's some fun banter and cute conversations that they have. So I am happy with that. The next thing I'm going to do is another linear pass. I'm going to be trying to do line editing, just smoothing out, cleaning up, and also probably a little bit more adding if I see places where that would be good. And if I add a few hundred words or a few thousand words, either is fine with me, with where my word count is sitting. I think for a YA fantasy, 70 something thousand is totally fine. I am wondering if I should take a few days before doing this next pass, or maybe read through the whole thing without touching it before I start doing the line edits. I'm not totally sure. It is, as I said, the 24th of August, and I was hoping to be done the line edit pass in the next week so that I can give it to more people to read by the start of September. That is what I promised my husband. I said, I need you to read this at the beginning of September. That is what I have been working towards. I will have to make that call. I don't know. Me from the future, who you will meet in just a second, will have that answer for you. Future Moon here with the update. It is the 29th now. I did not really take any time off, and I did not do a read through without changing anything. Stuff that needs to be fixed makes me itch, and I need to scratch the itch by fixing it. So I just did it. I went through, I did the linear pass, all the line edits There were some things that were, some inconsistencies that needed fixing. Mostly it was language cleanup, breaking up run-on sentences, making stuff cleaner, less cumbersome, and it's done. I finished that step. I will be doing a separate pass starting later this evening, I hope. Cleaning things up. Every chapter after 19 is off a number because an extra chapter got added there. But I may also combine some chapters. So I'm going to check the word count of each chapter and see if anything should be combined. In general, the chapters are quite short, and that's fine with me, but if some are ridiculously super short or would make more sense combined, I'm going to combine them, and I'm going to make sure they are all numbered properly, and I'm going to add the day and general time of day to the chapter headings. I have, as I went through, tried to be clearer about noting the passage of time and in the text making that make more sense or be more obvious, but I'm also going to add it to the chapter headings. This book starts on Sunday afternoon and ends on Friday afternoon. The final chapter is a follow-up that happens some weeks later. But basically the whole thing happens in 5 days, and that is definitely a tendency of mine, short timelines like that. So after I get through that pass, which I'm hoping I can do quite quickly, I am going to put the whole thing through an online word and phrase frequency counter and see if there are some correct phrases I hadn't noticed I was overusing. I know that as compared to my previous book, the one I'm now querying, I know that from the outset I did better with avoiding stuff like that because I was more aware of it, having revised the previous book somewhat by the time I drafted this one. I know for a fact there are a lot fewer filter words in the first draft of this than there were even in the second or third draft of my last book. So, yeah, it's better. It is better at this stage than The Deathmaker's Child, which I am now querying, was at, a similar third draft-ish stage for sure. So I am happy with that, and I hope that I am correct in that assessment, that I am genuinely learning from the mistakes I catch while revising, making those mistakes less often, hopefully not making too many fresh new ones, and that my writing is going to continue to improve with each book that I write and revise. Hopefully it will only be within the first few days of September that I have this book ready for my husband to read like I told him it would be. And it's done. It's done. And it's only the 30th. So I stayed up really late last night organizing the chapters. First thing I did was check the word count of every single chapter, so I was aware of any standout numbers. And there was one that I didn't realize was so super short. There were other places where I had realized. Anyway, there are 3 places where I combined 2 chapters. Mostly the chapters are pretty short. I just didn't want any of them to be 644 words like that one was. So I did that, which then necessitated renumbering. And then I added, as I was planning to, what day it was, and in general, just sort of morning, midday, afternoon, or evening. That didn't actually take very long. I hope I did it right. And I'm not super confident because I just made a calendar for September just moments ago, and across the top I was labeling the days of the week. I wrote Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday in pen. Once I finished with that, I used a word and phrase frequency counter that I found online, and I was delighted. So there were a few things that caught my eye. Phrases like I was accustomed to, or to which I was accustomed, came up a little too often. Raised an eyebrow. So raising an eyebrow is a thing people do. It's pretty common. It was only 5 instances of that specific phrase, but I was a little concerned that that's only one specific phrasing. I may have phrased it slightly differently at other times, and I wanted to go through and just see how much eyebrow raising was actually happening and whether it was all necessary. Head between knees. Now this one I was already aware of. I felt like it was said a little too often, so I just sort of flag that for myself. This is my list right here in the wind. I was a little surprised about a slightly stronger word than heck, which came up more than I realized. A lot more, 26 uses. I was a little amused by 6 uses of all the things, which it sounds different when I just say it separately or see it on a list by itself than how it was probably used in there, but all the things, which kind of felt like what I was dealing with at the time. For a little bit of a content warning, there were 49 uses of killed, 50 uses of dead, 9 of die, and 31 of blood in this book. And the most commonly used word, because I was writing in first person, was the word I, with 3,883 uses. So a lot of what gets flagged in a word or phrase frequency counter is totally understandable. Stuff like I was, he said, and so it's just the things that aren't so invisible, like accustomed to, that I was really concerned about in this past. Now, one thing that was really nice to see, because I think we all always hope that our future first drafts will have fewer of the same problems that we encountered while revising our past first drafts, because of our experience with revising. Because as we are drafting, we are about to type the word suddenly, and we think to ourselves, I had to cut a lot of those from that last book. I'm just gonna not put it in here. So I was really pleased to see that I had only 18 uses of the word suddenly in this manuscript, when at a similar stage with my last book, I went through this exact process and I found 38. So I have cut my suddenlies in half, basically. Now, suddenly isn't a bad word, and I don't mind having some of them in there. But in some cases, it does feel like you're trying to show something happening right away, but you delay it by 3 syllables by sticking the word suddenly in before the thing happens. So it's a thing I wanted to be cautious about, and apparently I've been doing better with that particular crutch word in drafting than I did before. So I just collected my list last night, and then today I went through and worked on it, and I figured out how many of those accustomed tos I actually needed, where they were located, which ones I wanted to hold on to, and what I could do to change the ones that weren't so necessary. I looked at those raised eyebrows, and I looked at those what the hecks, and I made sure that they weren't too close together, that I didn't do anything, that would raise a flag, that would be memorable in the same chapter or one chapter after another, making sure that stuff that was a little more distinctive choice of words was at least spread out. It's totally understandable that someone in a new setting would be thinking about what they are or are not accustomed to, but it's not a word that we use all the time, so I just wanted to only use it when necessary. I went through all that today. I caught a place where at the end of a sentence there was comma, space, period, because I must have switched phrases, reversed the sentence at some point, and got the punctuation messed up. There are probably other things like that in there still, but I called it done. And I'm gonna step away from it now and let some other people read it. At this point, I am having at least one person who has not read it before and at least one person who has read it before read through it. So that difference in perspective, I think, could be helpful. And one of these people is a really fast reader, so I might get some feedback sooner than I expected. In the meantime, I am calling it done, and the final word count, 74,337 words. So I added more than this few hundred, but I found I was cutting a bunch as well. Not a bunch in any one place, but smoothing out phrasing in this line edit did mean cutting down on an unnecessary 1, 2, 3 words in a sentence a bunch of times. I'm delighted with that word count. That word count is totally in the target range, is exactly what I would be hoping for. We shall see what people think of it. For now, I am moving on. I'm going back to Glow, my middle grade queer contemporary, and I am going to do a first read through, first revision pass on that, which is the one where I deal with brackets and just to make sure things make sense before I ask anybody to read it. Until next time, Rainbow Rowell has a new book out and I just got it from the library, so I am gonna read that and not write at all today.